Leela, the proud poly kinky queer slut. Today's question is, why do you hate Christians? First, let me say I do not hate Christians as people. I very much appreciate several Christians that I know. Um, Christianity as an organization is what I'll be talking about today, and specifically organized Christianity in the United States of America. Um, but Christians, I know people who are Christian, and I've met and love and interact with every day Christians who I think are very, very, very good people who are living values that I empathize with and appreciate, and have wonderful value discussions with Christians about core concepts that I really appreciate. So before I tell you um, what I dislike about Christianity, I'm going to tell you what I really like about the beliefs of those Christians, the Christians who I know who are living a life based on the values that they tell me are the teachings of Jesus Christ. So things that we share in common are this sense that we each have our own personal path, and that understanding the grand plan is not something that we humans are really capable of doing. And therefore, it is not for us to judge anyone else's path. That is between them and their God, their higher power, to do. So, what these folks that I know that I'm thinking of particularly, I'm thinking of a few examples, some wonderful people I work with, and a few people within my family, who they give to those who are less fortunate. They take care of those that society is leaving out. Um, they are generally pacifists, not people who do not do violence in the name of any organized power or at all. Um, and similar to me, and they are people um, who understand what I mean when I talk about having that sense of what's right inside me, and knowing that as long as I'm aligned with that, I'm living my best life and my most authentic life. They're people that when I say that, they understand what that means and feel a similar thing from themselves. Most importantly, these people that I'm thinking of are people who have no problem with people not being Christian, who for whom like bringing people to the message of Jesus Christ is about teaching and sharing, not about pushing and coercion. And frankly, each of these people that I'm thinking of believe strongly in the separation between church and state, and that people should have the freedom to believe whatever they believe, and it's not on the organization to tell them what to believe. Things that I hate about Christianity as an organization. Um, Christianity has been as an organization, as a force, has is the dominant force in our culture for colonialism and oppression of anyone that does not fit the standard heteronormative stereotypes that are out there. Um, Christianity as an ideal and organization was responsible for manifest destiny, for a ton of the oppressions of colonization. Christian Native American schools, which literally robbed people of their culture. Um, there are example upon example throughout history, even coming down to things like how we got half of our Christian and Easter traditions from the Roman Christian oppression of what they considered barbaric cultures, but they would co-opt their traditions in order to make them in order to pull those people into the Christian fold. Um, that history is um, is I think something that we need to actively fight against and fight in opposition to now. We know better. We need to do better as a society. Um, I also have a challenge with Christianity when it comes to their notions of women's roles and of how sex is treated. And I flat out feel that is in opposition to what my understanding is of right and wrong, and my core principles of authentic self, and what that tells me about what's right and wrong. Um, Putting people into classifications based on their gender and giving them rights and responsibilities based on that gender, and instead of based on the individual and what the individual wants and needs, I think that is harmful to society. And I think that has been a message perpetrated by Christianity and by other major religions for quite some time. And Christianity right now in modern America is going the additional step, and again, organization of the Christian churches in America, going the additional step of continuing to preach hate, and hate against my family, hate against me and my people. the people that I love. Um, this is coming out in ideas of Christians being persecuted. Um, I live in a culture where I am not Christian, and yet my culture is dominated by Christian influence. Everything around me. I cannot go out my door for 2.5 months of the year without running into Christmas. Um, I, traditions of Easter, traditions of praying to God, these permeate my culture. And yet, I routinely encounter people who feel that my just being non-Christian in those spaces and saying no, that is not what I practice, is somehow persecuting their ability to practice such things. That to me is just ridiculous. Um, I have the right to raise my kids to not be Christian, and yet there are people who are trying to get Christianity in schools, trying to take books out of schools that do not align with their Christian sensibilities when it comes to gender, sexual orientation, power of women. Um, I find that abhorrent and frankly dangerous. And right now, what I see is that Christianity is being used as a tool to prop up people like Donald Trump, people who are, frankly, white supremacists and rapists, and all of these notions of oppression. And uh, there's this notion of the white person being oppressed that is very much linked to this notion of Christians being oppressed. That is, it is opposite of reality. It is so opposite of reality that it's hard to even fathom where this is coming from. And all I can say is that it's an indoctrinated message that is getting, pushed on people. But in reality, I see absolutely no evidence of this in my world. In fact, I see evidence of the complete opposite, where white people are absolutely not being discriminated against, and Christians are the dominant force culturally in our society, and any effort to be anything but that is being harangued and sidelined as radical and called all sorts of things that it just isn't. Um, Finally, I really see that there is a violence associated with all of this hate that I do not see any evidence that the Christian tradition is doing anything to seriously deter from that violence. Um, I see that there are just attitudes of defending oneself and one's traditions against outside attack. This tribalism in these organizations um, that I find scary, because it means that they're organizing to attack myself and my trans wife and my children and our queer family. And that's terrifying. And my friends are scared, and I am scared that the Christians are going to come and get us. And I'm not afraid of that because of some, like stories on the news or some hyperbole. I'm afraid of that because right now the United States government is making laws that are trying to erase the existence of my wife. I'm afraid of what happens to my friends who are transgender if they want to travel, and if they want their passport to actually reflect their gender identity. Because right now, there is zero evidence that to my personal experience, I have seen zero evidence in my personal experience of Christians being persecuted in the United States of America for being Christians, in the sense of like violent attacks, etc. Transgender people do get attacked for being trans. Gay people do get attacked for being gay, physically assaulted, especially when you're talking about things like prison systems. I am not aware of a single legitimate case of a trans woman assaulting a person in a bathroom. As far as I know, that's a rumor that as and frankly a scare tactic drummed up to the people who don't fit nicely into this idea of what normal is. What does happen is that trans women get beat up in men's rooms by intolerant men who are defending what their notion of right is. Trans women get told that they're mentally ill by people who frankly are preaching hate. And a lot of those people, in my experience, are people who profess to be Christian, who go to church and profess to be following the teachings of God. That is my problem with Christianity. That is what I hate about Christianity. The people who say they're Christian and go stand across the street from people who are protesting for rights, who are saying treat everyone equally, recognize that people are different, let each person follow their path, and then across the street is somebody with a big Bible verse sign telling that saying that God wants you to die, that God thinks you're evil, that you're crazy and you need to atone for what you're doing. That, to me, that is evil. That is evil. And I just want to throw this out there. Radical, crazy idea. But pause for a minute and ask yourself, what would Jesus actually do right now? The Jesus of the Christian faith. And I'm not talking about historical debates about Jesus. I'm talking about Jesus as the Christian faith puts out there in our culture as the ideal of what Jesus is. What side would Jesus be on right now in this? Where would Jesus be today? Jesus, as I understand the tradition, was a person who did not judge prostitutes and whores. A person who, according to the mythos of Jesus, said, don't judge not lest ye be judged. Don't cast the first stone. Care for your neighbors. Don't try to understand the crazy mystical workings of God. Take care of your world and leave your neighbor's world to your neighbor. Where would Jesus be? Because I'm betting that Jesus would be helping the downtrodden, helping with the homeless crisis, helping to secure rights for people who are at actual risk right now. I don't think Jesus would be standing there with a sign that's saying you're going to hell. I don't think that's how that works. At least not any kind of religion that I was going to follow. And if you are interested in saving souls, if you are interested in turning people to the messages of Christianity, well, a really bad way to do it is to take away the identity of someone's spouse or someone's self or someone's child. The best way to show the right way is to live the right way, the way that you think is right in your heart, that works for you, and to appreciate everybody else's autonomy to do the same. Call me crazy, but I think that's true. And frankly, I think that's in line with the teachings of Jesus Christ. Call me crazy, but I do. I really think it is. And what I think is in teaching with what I think the Christian church is doing right now, frankly, evil. I'm just going to say it. I think it's evil. I think that hate is evil. War is evil. Taking away basic protections for the environment, basic protections for rights and liberties, I think that is evil. So yeah, those are my takes. That is why I hate Christianity, but I absolutely do not hate Christians. And I would like for us to find more common ground over the values that we share, because I think that there's a lot more similarity than difference if we can all just stop tearing each other down and terrifying each other. So let's work on that. I'll be right in there with you doing it. Let's work on building that bridge to respect each other. Thank you very much. This is Leela, the proud poly kinky queer slut. Remember, you can ask me anything, and have a great day.